Cette route qui va quelque part nous emmènera.
Questa strada che va da qualche parte ci porterà. I giardini resteranno, oh Mawada, questa strada che va da qualche parte ci porterà. I giardini resteranno, oh Mawada, in a cannabis.
A conversation, media and the Lake Chad. It's an article review by Colette Mefir from the Center for African Study and Alexandra Musset. They've been researching on what was the position of the media and the communication around the lake. And they will have, of course, this interview this morning. Colette, which is working with us at the Center for African Studies, will also participate virtually at the webinar that will take place from 11 to 12:30. Also in English, the different perspective on nature and conflicts in the Lake Chad and beyond. And of course, the moderator will be Emanuele Fantini. Colette Mefir will have a video contribution. Then there will be Bernardo Venturi from Institute of International Affairs. Brigadier General Saleh Bala, which will from Nigeria. It's a young researcher that will contribute, and the final remarks will be left to Jean-Leonard Touadi. In the afternoon, there will be an interview with COPI, which is an ONG that is working around the lake. And of course, Dr. Massimo Salvadori will talk about this. There will be then an important documentary, Tropico del Caos, which is connected to the work of COPI and also connected to the music that you listen at the beginning of this session. After Tropico del Caos, there will be which is a documentary around the lake, about the lake. There will be an interview with the director of the documentary, which will be published online. And so thank you very much. I will leave the floor to Colette Mefir and to Alexandra Musset. Thank you very much.
Okay, so I have to do the presentation and then we start. Okay. All right. So good morning, viewers and our listeners. And so we welcome you to this another session of this international meeting on Lake Chad. And today we are going to present to you a research that we did and concerning international and African media, how they treat the Lake Chad issue or the Lake Chad problem. So we had to work on different newspapers, on different news outlets. And Alexandra Mutse, who is in the UK, she worked on international media. And I am in Italy. I worked on African media. And so we are going to share with you our research and our findings. And so I think we are going to start with Alexandra. Alexandra, welcome and good morning once more.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alexandra. I'm a graduate from the University of Nottingham. I'm doing an internship with the Centre of African Studies in Piedmont. Yeah, so I was looking at media articles in the international English-speaking media outlets, such as The Guardian, the BBC, The Telegraph, The Independent, Al Jazeera, and The Washington Post. And I was looking at how these media outlets represent the Lake Chad crisis. The first point to note is that I found that there was quite limited coverage of the Lake Chad crisis. The average coverage was about 14 articles over the span of a year and a half, with some media outlets only publishing 5 articles over that time span. And I think what this highlights is that there's quite a weak Western reader interest regarding the Lake Chad crisis, despite the breadth of the humanitarian issues going on within that region, and the fact that the Lake Chad crisis has been going on for many years now. Yeah, so the limited coverage is definitely something that I found in my research.
Maybe I can add something to what you just said. Yes, there is a limited coverage as regards the Lake Chad issue and the humanitarian crisis that is taking place there. And as a journalist and a former journalist, I would like to say, from outside, I couldn't expect them to do something more than what they have done so far. What would be of great interest to them, to the international media outlets, would be when there is a calamity, not about the humanitarian stuff, but about the Boko Haram terrorist attacks and things like that. And so when they hit, everybody is concerned, because if you still remember, after the 9/11 attack in the United States, many governments in the international community got, I think, they got united, to fight against terrorism around the world. And since one of the terrorist groups is found in this part of Africa, that is the Boko Haram. And I think that's why when they hit, when they strike, when they kill, and when they cause calamity and disaster in that area, everybody is concerned, because it's a terrorist attack. And so I understand why the Lake Chad issue, which should be an international concern, the media doesn't care about that. They care about only when it touches or when it concerns international peace.
Yeah, so I definitely found that most articles that did report on the Lake Chad crisis, they were reporting on Boko Haram or an ISWAP attack in the region, or a counterinsurgency attack. And the articles were mainly reporting on sort of the direct impacts of these clashes, like killings, abductions, immediate displacement. But obviously we know that there are many different factors going on within the Lake Chad region, for example, climate issues. So yeah, definitely the Western reader interest is more concerned with this idea of international peace and terrorism, because it relates to Western security concerns, hence more reporting on terrorist-related issues. But it is quite interesting, because obviously the climate change is very much related to, it's a global issue. Yeah, there is very little reporting on this, and climate issues within that region definitely feed into internal conflict because of the lack of resources. And so it would be, I think, in Western readers' interest to have more reporting on climate-related issues within the region as well. But yeah, definitely there is this more of an interest in terrorist-related attacks, which I guess isn't really surprising for the current climate today. And another point that I found in my research is in a lot of these articles, in a lot of these articles, journalists cited statistics from NGOs about the number of people displaced, the number of people killed, and there was a real lack of perspective from civilians on the ground. And I think this kind of made the Lake Chad crisis very one-dimensional, because all we were hearing is about just direct impacts from statistics from these security incidents, rather than getting a view of the Lake Chad crisis, how it's been ongoing for several years now, and all of the different social factors that are playing, such as poor governance, IDP camps having a lack of money and good living conditions, obviously all the environmental issues as well. So we're seeing a lot of these articles talking about how Boko Haram has displaced all these people and killed lots of people, but there's a lack of insight into the fact that a lot of the people within the region are already internally displaced. So these attacks are happening on communities that were already displaced because of climate-related issues and because of poor living conditions. And also, we're not really hearing a lot about the statistics of people who are harmed by famine and gender violence that's going on within IDP camps. It's a lot of the direct aftermath of humanitarian issues because of these security-related issues, when there's a lot more going on in the humanitarian side that isn't necessarily directly related to terrorism.
Yeah, I totally agree with you that most of the elements that we can have, or like the statistics, displaced people, the killings, the mutilations, and things like that, we can get those figures or those elements, all those statistics only from international organizations like the United Nations High Commission, the United Nations Refugee Agency. We can equally have from Save the Children, Save the Children, I beg your pardon. So the international organizations are on the field. They have their missions there. And that's why I think if we have to know about what is happening in the humanitarian aspect, we can get them only from international organizations. But as concerns the international media outlet, as well as the African media outlets, I realized from my research and what I observe is that there is less concern about the humanitarian aspect, or there is less concern or less coverage on the Lake Chad issue. What is really happening with the Lake Chad? Because as I think you already know, and some of our viewers, that many people around the Lake Chad area, from Cameroon, from Chad, from Nigeria, and even from Nigeria, Chad, and Niger, most of them, they depend on that for a living. And so when I did my research, what I realized concerning the African media outlets, the articles are focused, as I divided it I could divide it into two sections, that the institutional aspects, that, for example, what am I talking about? Institutional facts is that when there is an international conference where there are pledges, you see the head of states, ministers gathered to talk about the Lake Chad issue. More focus is on the pledges, the money that will financial assistance that they need. But the journalists, African journalists, don't go or don't try to investigate to see if the money that was that the pledges that were made, if they were respected. They did investigate to find out if, even if the money was were given, how would they used, to change to ameliorate the living condition of the only report that I got was from BBC Africa, where the editor-in-chief went on the field, tried to find out how the people are living, the displaced people, and how they're struggling to survive, and what, because most of the time the governments, I'm talking about the four countries, that is Cameroon, Nigeria, Chad, and Niger. When they meet, they talk about how they have to unite their efforts to combat the Boko Haram, but they don't talk about how they can really work hard, invest to ameliorate the living condition of the people. So that's why we find a lot of poverty. The people from the article that I read, they were very disgusted with the way their governments are treating them. And so I think if the African journalists are less concerned, show less concern on this issue, so we can imagine how the international media outlet will treat the issue only when there is a terrorist attack.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think you make a really good point. I think if journalists are gonna report on international donations and the financing that is going into these governments, and they definitely do have a responsibility to see where that money goes, for sure.
Yeah, but what I can say is that if there is a donation, the money donated by countries, I think the countries must try to find out where the money, how has the money been used. But these are things that we cannot find from the media. And so I think there's something lacking, and more should be done to ameliorate the living condition of the people living around the Lake Chad area.
Yeah, and also there's like the multinational task force which operate in the Lake Chad area, which is a combination of, I think, the Chad government and the Chad army and the Nigerian army, and I think they're also backed by the French and maybe some other international actors. So obviously the Lake Chad crisis, what fuels internal conflict, what fuels terrorism, and the impact of terrorism is of interest to international readers, because obviously international actors are putting money into the region. So understanding that climate and what it's going towards, I think, is important. And maybe a lot of people, international readers, don't really understand that from the West. They kind of see this as an isolated, far-off issue, which our governments have no involvement in, when actually they do, whether that be through backing this international task force, or through donations to relieve the humanitarian crisis. Yeah, is there anything else that you found in your research?
In my research, I equally found nothing new, because I think the treatment of the coverage of the Lake Chad calamity, I'm talking about the shrinking of the water, has not been highlighted in most of the articles that I read. So one of the is it the BBC Africa regional reporter that is editor Will Ross, he described the crisis in the around that area as a deafening silence, and I think it's very pathetic, because it's something that is happening in the world today. We live in a globalized system, and when I was in school and they talk about globalization, I think what they made me understand that we are now living in a small village. So what is happening in Africa, it should be, or somewhere around the world, it should be of international concern. Unfortunately, this issue has been going on for years, and nothing has been done. And many people are dying. Many families are dying. People are desperate. And because from that report, you could have like an insight. You can visualize in a sort of way what is really happening in that area. And at the end, you feel as, for God's sake, why is the international community not reacting, to save those lives?
Yeah.
Why? And so there is that question, why? Yes, we talk about international donations, but how much has been raised so far? Where has the money gone to? Has it been used for the interests of the population? But as an African, I would say, if really money has been raised, it should be a lot of money, because it's an international donation. But where has that money finished? Where has it ended? Because there is, you can expect the people to keep on crying, and the governments are not able to react. So at the end, I think we have to make a call. It's a desperate call, so that the international community can try to look at what is happening around the Lake Chad. Not only the water itself, because I know the water is very useful for the people, because some of them are farmers, they were fishermen, and so they depend on that for the living. So if the international community could mobilize once more and try to investigate and try to show more interest on what is happening in that area, I think it would be something good and something laudable.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think for me, like when I talk to my friends and my family about the research that I was doing, a lot of people would say, like, what is the Lake Chad crisis? I've never heard of this before. And then I mentioned Boko Haram, and they go, oh yeah, of course, yeah, Boko Haram, yeah. So no, I definitely think there is a responsibility from both African journalists and the international journalist community to report more on what is going on in every single aspect, not just the terrorism, not just the environmental issues, but poor governance, what international actors are involved, so that people can really have a wider understanding of what's going on in that region as The Lake Chad crisis, like you said, has been going on for many, many years. There are millions of people displaced in the area. And it's been, I think, listed as one of the top 10 humanitarian crises in the world, yet people don't really know about it. Yeah, so I think in summary, from me and Colette's research, we've looked at the African newspapers, the international newspapers. We've found a lack of in-depth, holistic reporting, and I think our conclusion is that we'd like to call on the journalistic community to cover the Lake Chad crisis in all aspects more vigorously, and I think as human beings, we also have a responsibility to do our own research into what's going on in this region, because it is very devastating and also very complex and multifaceted. And I think there's a lot of lessons to learn as well from this region when we look at things like climate change and environmental degradation, and how that can feed into internal conflict, and how we deal with these issues as an international community.
I think you've said it all. A nice conclusion. So let's hope that the next time we do a research, we'll see something positive, that the international community, the governments around the Lake Chad area would have done something that will ameliorate, improve, or change the life of the people. Because you highlighted something that is very pertinent: poor governance. And being an African, I know what it is. And so we hope that the next time, and that the cry of the people through our voice would be heard, and that something will be done to try to help them, because they are really in a desperate situation. So I thank you very much, Alexandra. It was nice working with you. And I think we'll have another opportunity to exchange our ideas and try to, because I think this issue about like Lake Chad crisis is something that is very pathetic, but it's very pertinent as well. We have to tell the international community that there is something going on, and people around the world should know and try to intervene to help these people.
It was nice working with you too, Colette.
Okay.
Thank you to everyone that's listening.
We wish our viewers a nice day, and a lot of reflection, a lot of thinking about what is happening in that part of the continent. So have a nice day.
Thank you very much to Colette and Alexandra that has been recording this conversation on media coverage and over the media coverage around the lake. I think that they both will hand out a paper in some week that will be published together with all the material of this conference on the website, in order that everyone could somehow cherry pick the part of the conference and refollow everything that is said during these days. Just a little reminder of what is happening at 11 o'clock. We will have our second webinar in English, which will be coordinated by Emanuele Fantini, which is the scientific coordinator of the project. And there will be a recorded interview from Colette with a local journalist in Chad. And then we will have Bernardo Venturi, General Saeb Bala, and the conclusion of General Natwadi. I leave you, and I see you around 11.